So guys, we are talking about impact of American Revolution. Now look at this, there are some words of which the meaning is very important to understand, and I will explain it properly and in detail. You have to write those keywords which I will explain elaborately, which are not elaborated here. So what is American Revolution? It is first modern mass revolution in the world. Mass revolution means the masses directly came forward and started taking part in a freedom struggle. See, there are two ways of struggle. It can either be an elite struggle or a mass struggle. Now when I say elite struggle, let's take one example. In 1885 in India, Congress was made. When the Congress was made in 1885, we said that only those people who are graduates, they can become members of this Congress. Now who were graduates in 1885 or 1900? Very few people, perhaps less than 1% of the total population. Now who were they? They were quite influential people, rich class people from the middle class, educated, enlightened middle class. So Congress was an elite organization, so its methods of agitation were very elite. Then in 1920 Mahatma Gandhi came and he said, let all people of India of age 21 and above, be rich or poor, men, women, educated, uneducated, high caste, low caste, everyone, let them all be equal participant or equal stakeholder in our freedom struggle. So then India's freedom struggle became a mass movement under leadership of Gandhi. Whereas America, it is first modern mass revolution in world because most of the people in America took part in this struggle, right? This is first thing. Now second is first time masses rose in revolt against unpopular colonial rule. Here unpopular means a very specific thing. When I say there is democracy and we elect our representatives, these elected members of parliament, they become members in popular house of parliament like Lok Sabha, right? Lok Sabha. So here unpopular does not mean that they are not popular among the masses, it means they are undemocratic colonial rule. One, they are undemocratic. Two, they are colonial. What we mean by colonial? They believe in only one thing, that is exploitation of the Americans, right? So that is why people of America revolted, because neither there was an element of democracy, moreover there was element of unnecessary exploitation. Next is it inaugurated an age of revolutions. Now what happens once the people of America revolted? American Revolution happened in 1786. Taking inspiration from these Americans, in 1776 to 83 it was American Revolution. 1789 people of France revolted. From where did they get this inspiration? From the American Revolution. So once it was American Revolution, immediately we found there is now another revolution, 1789 French Revolution. Similarly, then there were revolutions in Latin America, there were revolutions in Spain, and then across Europe in 1830 and 1848 there were number of revolutions like Italian Revolution, German Revolution, Polish Revolution. There were hundreds of revolutions. So some of the writers even go to the extent of saying that American Revolution is the mother of all revolutions. They started the process and all of a sudden all over the world there were several agitations and revolutions for democratic rights. French Revolution of 1789, Irish Revolution of 1798, then in the first half of 19th century number of revolutions in Latin American countries, then there was Spanish Revolution in 1820, and across Europe from 1830 and 1848 we have hundreds of revolutionary examples. So what we can say, that the American Revolution started an age of revolutions, right? It inaugurated an age of revolution all over the world. Several such revolutions happened with the aim of removing unpopular regimes. Unpopular, I hope now you know, undemocratic. So where there were kings or where there were foreigners ruling, now everywhere people started doing it, and it will not come to an end with this. This is in context of Europe. Then if I talk about 1947, India becoming free, it is also a revolution, that we fought against unpopular colonial regime and we became independent. Then in 1960s, 70s, 80s, it was Africa that became independent. So once American Revolution started, this process of revolution continued uninterrupted for very long time, for almost let's say about 2 centuries. Then liberal and progressive ideals of American Revolution. Now what are these liberal and progressive ideals of American Revolution? These are the ideals of the age of enlightenment. Whatever we have been reading in the age of enlightenment, that yes, there were ideas of liberty, equality, justice, rule of law, it is written here. So the liberal and progressive ideals of American Revolution transformed, this is not transferred, this is transformed not only America and Europe but the whole world. India will also change, Africa will change. All these ideas of liberty, equality, justice, rights, democracy, they will become popular all over the world. So liberal and progressive ideals of American Revolution transformed not only America and Europe but the entire world. And the ideas like this LEF, what it means? L is liberty. ये लिख लो, फिर बाद में पूछोगे फोन करके या मैसेज करके. What is LEF? L is liberty, equality and fraternity. Liberty, equality and fraternity. Liberty means freedom, equality means to treat everyone equally, fraternity means feeling of brotherhood, oneness, right? So ideas like liberty, equality, fraternity. Constitutionalism, this I have already explained. You write constitution, you limit the powers. Rule of law, natural rights of man, propagated, continue to inspire generations and open doors of modern age for masses in real way. Modern age, before this there were dark ages. People believed that the kings have divine powers, nobody was revolting against the kings. Now masses believe that old ideas have lost their relevance and the modern age, that is age of democratic rights, has started. Done. These are 3 most important elements or impacts of American War of Independence. Then emergence of America as first modern democratic state. All over the world the first modern democratic state was established in America. How? Look at this now. In America there is going to be no king. The head of the state in America is going to be a president, and this president will be elected by the people, right? It is more or less like direct democracy. In India we do not elect our president who is our head of state. We elect the members of parliament, and then the members of parliament and MLA elects the president, which is an indirect election. It is an indirect election, but in America the people of America elect the president. So there is no hereditary king. The president is elected, the Congress is elected by the people, and then they are 2 different bodies. He is executive, this is legislature. This is complete separation of powers in America. And how this separation of power has been ensured? The first written constitution in world written by the Americans. So world for the first time got an experience of a modern democratic state, as well as we got the first written constitution ever after this American War of Independence. Then this is in continuity, forget the numbers. American Revolution deprived Britain of one empire. Now what we mean by this statement, that American Revolution deprived Britain of one empire. Which empire we are talking about? The American Empire, right? They lost America, those 13 American colonial possessions, right? When it happened? 1776 to 1783, when the American War was fought. Now Britain lost American Empire. What impact it is going to have? But at the same time it paved way for strengthening foundations of other empire. Now what is this other empire? It is India. Look at this. 1776 to 83, American War of Independence fought, America became independent. All of a sudden now British government is focusing more on India, and immediately British government paid greater attention to colonies in India. Pitt's India Act 1784 was passed. Now what is Pitt's India Act? This we will do in our modern Indian lectures, right? They immediately passed a new act and told the East India Company that you cannot simply now handle India according to your wishes. Parliament will actively participate in Indian administration, so that nothing wrong happens in India and then India goes out of the hands of the British. We do not want to lose 2 big empires together. So Pitt's India Act 1784 and the amending act of 1786 were passed, and similar parliamentary enactments of future were inspired by the same desire to keep India under the British control. So where American Revolution made Britain deprive of one empire, at the same time now they got chance to consolidate the other empire, that is Indian Empire. Then American Revolution made the idea of democracy popular all over the world, and the democratic ideal started attracting attention in free world as well as colonies. Now free world are the European countries. See, if they are free, that means nobody as is ruling over them. They are not colonized by anyone. But even in these free countries in Europe, there were still kings ruling, and there were no idea of democracy yet. But once the American Revolution was successful, now even in the European countries where kings were ruling, people started demanding the democratic rights. So it made democratic ideas popular both in the free world as well as in the colonies, right? Then American Revolution was first expression of nationalism in modern sense, because now the people of America said that America is our nation and it must be governed according to our wishes, and British cannot interfere in the American affairs, they are our national affairs. So the idea of nationalism, that a particular land belongs to one particular community and they make it a nation, it started becoming more popular with American Revolution. Next, American Revolution started the process of decolonization. First time one colonial possession of Britain, for example this is America, it became free. The process is decolonization, colonization coming to an end. American colonies gained independence. Now this will inspire the generations in other countries. Now if I give you a best example that how it inspired in other countries, when in 1885 we made Congress in India, right? The name Congress was given by Dada Bhai Naroji, right? Then from where did he get the idea that let it be called Indian National Congress? The idea came from that Continental Congress which met in 1775 at Philadelphia. When Americans fought for their independence, they made Continental Congress. Now that we Indians are fighting for freedom, let's make Indian National Congress. So the name Congress, it came from America. So they continued to inspire generations afterwards, and victory of American nationalists continued to inspire similar elements in other colonies for generations, and they fought for their independence. Next, American Revolution intensified hostilities between Britain and France. Now how this happened? As we were discussing yesterday that when America started the war for independence, the forces of France led by Lafayette, they were sent to America to help the Americans against the British. Now when the French supported the Americans, obviously Britain will feel bad and the hostilities between Britain and France will intensify, and this will be more intensified when Napoleon will come to power in France. Then Napoleon will start fights with Britain intentionally. This renewed hostility had manifested itself in continental conflicts after the outbreak of French Revolution when Napoleon came to power. So in Europe, American War of Independence renewed the hostilities between Britain and France. Now after this, okay, now next is Constitution. But all the causes or the consequences of American Revolution that we have just discussed, impact or significance of American Revolution. Now I have given you all the points, but when you have to write an answer in the exam, you just cannot throw it the facts like this. You have to make a structure. So how we make a structure for answer writing? When we write about the significance of American Revolution, we will say, we will first write an introductory line that I will discuss. Then we will say that the impact can be seen in political life, social life, economic life, and on the international relations, right? There were 4 aspects in which the impact of American Revolution can be understood. Politically, we have to see that there was one impact on America itself, that America became USA, it became a democratic country and things like that. Then it inspired the global community for this. So it is American impact on America politically and outside America. Similarly, socially, now we will talk about constitution, from where we will bring points here that socially in America these things changed and globally it inspired the same things. Economically, similarly, we will find out something from the Constitution of America. For example, economically people got fundamental right to property in America, right? And then on international relations, it renewed the hostilities between Britain and France. This is how we will make a structure and then we will write our answer. Now we will talk about American Constitution. Look at few things before we start with the slide. One, America became independent. Why? Because they were inspired by the Enlightenment ideas. Now when the Americans will sit, they are inspired by those Enlightenment ideas, and one key Enlightenment idea is constitutionalism. So obviously they will put it into practice, they will write their constitution. While they start writing their constitution, the same ideas with which they started the fight or their struggle for independence, it will inspire them. Now let's imagine we are Indians, we were fighting against the British, we were making some demands from the British. She was asking, while the British are ruling in India, they are not giving us equal opportunities for jobs. The whites get the better jobs and Indians are denied the jobs. So she was making a demand that we should have equality of opportunity in India, while he was making one demand that why Indians cannot contest elections. You should give us equal right to contest elections. He was making a demand that why Indians cannot vote, why you give voting right to very few people in India, give it to everyone. So the things that were inspiring us during the freedom struggle, the same things are again on our mind while we are drafting the constitution. So the founding fathers of Indian Constitution, those who were members of Constituent Assembly when they were writing constitution, who are they? They are the same people who were the leaders during freedom struggle. Similarly is the case with America. Who are the founding fathers of American Constitution? Those who were the leaders of the freedom struggle. So the demands which they were making during the time of freedom struggle, now they have promised their people that if we become independent, you will get all those rights, you will get all those benefits. Now constitution has to reflect the desires of people. So they started writing a constitution. What kind of questions UPSC can ask? What are the features of American Constitution? What are the inspirations of American Constitution? How American Constitution is not just an economic document and is more a political document. These kind of questions they can ask. So I have made all these headings in the slide and I will give you points of each and every question like this. For example, let's start with the first thing. So every answer starts with an introduction. In introduction we can say that this American Constitution was adopted by a Congress of 13 American colonies that met at Philadelphia on 17 September 1787. And once this constitution was adopted, America became a democratic state. So it means adoption of this constitution carried the process of political evolution in former colonies of North America to new heights. Now America will emerge as a modern democratic nation with a written constitution which guarantees people their democratic rights. That means this constitution provided the basis to modern democratic American state, which is called United States of America, right? So this constitution itself is the basis for the very idea of modern democratic American state, which we call United States of America. Now they can ask you a question in main straight away. What were the factors active in drafting of American Constitution? What were the factors active in drafting of American Constitution, or we can say what inspired American Constitution? What were the main things that inspired American Constitution? So the process of drafting American Constitution was influenced by the nature and character of former American colonies, as were the people who were living in America. What was their way of life? It will be reflected in it. For example, they believed in freedom, so they will always talk about अमेरिकन फ्रीडम लविंग नहीं है, लविंग पीपल होगा. आई होप इतनी तो गलतियां तुम खुद भी पकड़ दोगे. यू कैन गेट होल्ड ऑफ इट. Americans are freedom loving people. They cherish the ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity. So obviously it will be reflected in the constitution. Now they want that people should have all the freedoms in America. Look at the extent to which Americans gave freedom to their people. They can carry arms freely. Anybody can keep arms in America. In India, so you have so many restrictions now. America, everybody is free to have arms. Anybody carries arm and anybody can kill anyone. They go to schools, they open fire. They go to mall, they open fire. Every now and then we keep on listening to this na कि America में यहाँ firing होगी, वहाँ firing होगी. Everybody is free to carry arms. If I tell you something very true about America na, perhaps you all will be little surprised. But let me tell you something. It is part of world history. It has to come after some time. So let's try understand it here only. See, I tell you something. What happened? In 1750s, industrial revolution began in Britain. For almost good 100 years it was Britain where industrial revolution continued, right? So Britain was the superpower up to 1860s and there was no match to it. Britain had the best navy. Why they had the best navy? Because they had the maximum trade world over. Why they had maximum trade world over? Because they were the only industrialized country and they produced the maximum goods and then they were sold to every part of the world. So with their industrial revolution, their trade grew exponentially, and with this growth in trade, they could manage to have better navy. Now the three things are together: trade and what was this? Industrial revolution and navy. Now three things are interrelated. You have better navy, you can go to every part of the world, fight wars and continue to have your control over the resources of the sea and beyond the seas. If you have all the control on the naval routes and you manage to control the monopoly of trade, then your industrial revolution will continue having more impact and your prosperity will grow. So these were interrelated things. Britain had best navy and because of that best navy it could manage to control many territories, because of which its trade continued to grow, and because the trade continued to grow they made more and more investment in industries. So they made modern industries every now and then. Then from 1860s onwards, new industrial powers emerged. USA, Japan, Germany. This is the time which is called Second Industrial Revolution. When this phase came, now there was an intense competition for colonial possessions. Because every new industrial nation wanted to control more and more colonial possessions from where they can get the raw material and where they can sell their finished goods. You need markets to sell your finished goods and you need resources for raw material. So everyone will fight to control more and more colonial possessions. This will lead to World War I, right? Everyone is fighting to control more and more colonies. This will lead to World War I. Now World War I is epicentered in Europe. The fight was between France, Germany, Russia. These were the countries, Italy, Austria. These are the countries which involved themselves in World War I. America is sitting so far away across the ocean, right? So America came to Europe to fight the war. Nobody went to America to fight the war. When the war happened here, France, Germany, Russia, Britain and Italy, all the destruction and devastation happened in Europe only. Every enemy, like if Germany is fighting against France and Britain, so what Germany will try? Germany will attack the industrial towns of France and Britain. Similarly, Britain and France will try to destroy the industrial cities of Germany. So ultimately in World War I we destroyed all the industries of Europe. Now that Europe lost its industrial supremacy, the Europe which had been net exporter, it has been exporting things all over the world. After World War I, the Europe became net importer. Now it has to import things from where? From USA. And all of a sudden USA started becoming the major industrial power, right? This is how the history kept on changing. So the grand ideals of the age of enlightenment also influenced the American Revolution and its constitution. Obviously what they learned from the age of enlightenment, the same ideas are going to be reflected in their constitution. We can always find the influence of the philosophy of John Locke in the opening lines of American Constitution. What they say? All men are born equal. This is the line of John Locke with which the American Constitution starts. Now you have to keep another thing in mind. Americans said all men are born equal, and they were so literal in it that they gave all rights to only men and women were given no rights. The women had to wait for end of World War 1920s when they will get right to vote. Only men got right to vote. They said, we said men are born equal, not women. And then what men? They said men means we, Americans, the black people, even they did not get any right in America. It took one full movement of the black race then to fight for their rights. So even America, when they call that we are very modern nation, even their development is in stages. First stage, okay, all men are equal, then okay, blacks are equal, then okay, even women are equal, then LGBTs are equal, as I was telling yesterday. So it has been evolution of an idea. It was not that very one day when they became independent they said all right, everyone is equal. Now look at India. The day you became independent, you made everyone equal to a very large extent. Men, women, educated, illiterate, high caste, low caste, all were given equal status. At least everyone got right to vote, right? This is true democracy. Then ideals of constitutionalism, rule of law, secularism, and concept of natural rights of man, all these enlightenment ideals, it inspired the writing of American Constitution. Then experience gained during the war, when they were fighting against Britain, what exactly they were fighting against? Since Americans fought war against monarchy, they did not want that America should now have a king or a queen. So American Constitution provides for republican political system. As I told, what is republican? Where head of state is elected. And in America, who is the head of the state? It is president, and president is elected. So yes, they wanted to have a political system where the king or queen is not hereditary, rather the head of the state should be elected by people. Then next is principles of checks and balances, the inspiration from the writings of French philosopher Montesquieu. He was saying that there should be separation of powers. Now what should be the separation of power for? It is for checks and balances. As I was telling you, if the members of parliament pass a bill, right, and the bill is against the spirit of constitutional, it is called unconstitutional. It is against the spirit of constitution. Let's say the Constitution of India gives fundamental rights to people. Parliament passes a bill and it restricts the fundamental rights of the people. Now it is going against the spirit of the constitution, so it is unconstitutional. Who will declare it? Supreme Court, that is judiciary. What is parliament? It is legislature. So there is one body called legislature which make the law, but there is another body called judiciary, the Supreme Court, which will keep a check on it and create a balance that legislature must not go beyond its required stage or beyond its required space. Like they cannot interfere in those things, or they cannot do those things which constitution does not allow them. Similarly, now if the judges of Supreme Court act in some corrupt manner, who will check them? The members of parliament will pass a resolution for the removal of judges. If judiciary is doing something wrong, parliament check it and maintain the balance. If parliament is doing something, judiciary will check it and maintain the balance. So this is checks and balance, which is possible if there is separation of powers. If I am a king, I have absolute power, I make a law and I check it, then because I made it, why should I check it? I to think it is right, then I will always justify it. So here it is, when there is separation of powers, there is a possibility of checks and balances. So American Constitution emphasizes on rigid balance of power की जगह SOP कर लेना, separation of powers, right? This is separation of powers, right? It is separation of powers, emphasizing on rigid separation of powers so that different organs of state can act as check on the authority of each other. Parliament cannot do this, president cannot do that, and judiciary cannot go beyond this. So this is a system that American Constitution has provided. Then the cosmopolitan cultural outlook. Americans are those people who believe that everyone can live together happily. There must not be unnecessary clashes of caste, color, creed. So American Constitution emphasizes on fundamental inviolable right to property, that everyone should have equal right to property, be it a person of white or black race, be it a person living in urban area or rural area, everyone should have equal right to property. Now when we talk about equal right to property, it doesn't mean that everybody will get equal property. What is equal right to property? there are A, B and C, 3 people, right? If we are not talking about this kind of a system, then we can say because he is born in the family of king, he will remain king and he will have all the wealth, right? He is born in the family of nobility, so he is now has a reservation of seats for these offices with which this much of the income comes, right? So he will get this much of income. Now they are common people, and these common people, because they are not having equal right to education even, so they will not get these high offices, they will work like slaves and slaves will get the minimum salaries. This man, let's say, earn 10 lakh rupees a month, this person gets 2.5 lakh rupees a month and they get let's say 1000 rupees a month. Now look at the disparity. Someone getting 10 lakh rupees a month, few people getting 2.5 lakh rupees a month, then thousands of people, lakhs of people getting only 1000 rupees a month. This is abstract inequality, right? Now we do not desire equality literally, because if it is equality, let's say if we believe in absolute equality, the President of India and a sweeper who cleans the streets, they will get equal salary. Now that is not desirable and it should not even be. If everyone will get the same salary, then who will do the harder work, who will do the smarter work? Everyone will then sit, okay, we are getting the same salary. This right to property means that you should have right to equal opportunity. It shouldn't be that these high offices are reserved only for them. It should be open office. These people should also have the right to compete for this. For example, now anyone in India who is 21 and above and is a graduate, you can appear for IAS exam. They cannot say that the children of IAS officer can only sit for this exam. Now you have equality of opportunity. Beyond equality of opportunity, there is principle of merit. If you have merit, if you can qualify the exam, you can get the post, then become an IAS. But we can only promise you equality of opportunity, all of you sit in this exam. If I say along with equality of opportunity, I will give you right of equality too, that means all of you will clear the exam and all of you will be equal if you get rank 1. This is James Madison, contribution to American Constitution. This is, I have given a small note that if they ask what was his contribution, so you can easily write. James Madison, then he became the 4th president of USA. Not first president, but the 4th president, is basically the father of American Constitution. Made a major contribution to the ratification of Constitution by writing the Federalist Papers. He wrote the Federalist Papers, which became the basis for this Constitution. Along with, there are 2 other important names, Alexander Hamilton and John Jay. In later years, he was referred to as father of the Constitution, right? So his contribution is to write the Federalist Papers. A student of history and government, well read in law, he participated in framing of the Virginia Constitution in 1776, served in the Continental Congress and was a leader in the Virginia Assembly. In Congress, he helped frame the Bill of Rights, the fundamental rights for Americans. This is his major contribution, and enact the first revenue legislation. This is how James Madison contributed in the making of American Constitution, right? Now if they ask you to write a short note on James Madison, you have enough points to answer your question. What are the essential features of American Constitution? First question was, what were the inspirations? Now they can ask you, what are the essential features? All the features of American Constitution are written here. I have explained most of them, but in case you have missed on anyone, so I will again explain you. It's a written constitution, simple. This was first time that a constitution was written. It is republican in character, means head of the state is elected. Federal polity. Now what is federal? There are 2 types of political system. One is called federal, other is called unitary. In a federal system, the center and states have equal powers. Center and states have equal powers. Whereas in unitary system, center is more powerful and states are dependent on the center, right? USA has a federal system where center and states have equal powers. Britain is a unitary system where center is all powerful. Because in India we mix 2 systems, we give center more powers in some cases and in most of the cases center states have same powers. So we called Indian constitution as quasi federal system. It is half unitary, half federal. Then it is bicameral legislature. What is bicameral legislature? Where we have two houses. Like in India, the parliament is bicameral. We have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Similarly, in America, there are two houses, upper house and lower house. Then there is dual citizenship. In India, we have single citizenship. We all are citizens of India and that is it. Whereas in America, you are citizens of USA as well as of those states where you live. If you live in, let's say, New York, you are citizen of New York. If you move to Virginia, you become a citizen of Virginia. So you have some special rights. Even let's take an example now. If we live in India where there is single citizenship, so there is only one income tax. You pay same income tax wherever you live. But in America, there is one national income tax and then there is state income tax. So if I live in, let's say, X state where income tax is 6% and I find it heavy, I move to second state. And then where I find that the income tax is 4% and I settle there, right? And then there are some states which give incentives to special things. Like if you are in IT, we will take less taxes. But if you are in banking, we will take more initiatives. So that is why some specific states become hub of banking, some specific states become hub of IT. So that is dual citizenship, that citizens have citizenship of USA as well as of the states where they live. Then next is, in America, the constitution provides for presidential system of government. In our country, in India, it is parliamentary form of government, whereas in America it is presidential system. Now what is the difference between presidential and parliamentary? In parliamentary system, prime minister becomes the real executive. He gets all the powers because he is the leader of the majority party in parliament, so he gets all the powers. Whereas in presidential system, president is not the leader of majority party in the parliament. President is elected directly by the people. So America went for presidential democracy. We went for parliamentary or prime ministerial system of democracy. So that's the difference between Indian and American democracy. American is presidential, Indian is parliamentary. Then emphasis on natural rights of man. When they talk about their fundamental rights in American constitution, they emphasize that these fundamental rights are the natural rights of man. By virtue of being man, they deserve these rights. Then characterized by system of checks and balances. I hope I just explained this. Then liberal and progressive democracy based on ideals of rule of law and equal protection of law. Rule of law. That means there is a law, written law, and according to this written law, the rules are made and no will of any king can prevail. This is rule of law. When I say equal protection of law, here you have to understand two words. In America, it is very simple. It is equal protection of law, right? And then there is another concept called equality before law. There is something called equality before law and then something called equal protection of law. Now what it means? When I say equality before law, let's take one example. You all are my students. You all have paid me the fees that I have asked for, right? Now when I teach all of you, I should give you the same notes, same test, and I should explain everything to you at the same pace and in the same style. Is it justified that after taking the same fees from all of you, I say, okay, yaar, you come to my home today and we will sit and I will give you extra notes and I will explain you things again and again? Is it justified? Everyone should be treated equally before the law. Even if he is rich or poor, he is high caste, low caste, everyone should be equal before the law. Nobody should get anything special. This is equality before law. Now, if you all are my students and have paid me the fees that I have asked for, now what happens is that I teach 100 students in a class and then I find that there are 2 or 3 students who are not able to understand the lecture today. Now, if they are not able to understand the lecture today and I do not bother for them, then how can they become equal before law? They paid me the fees to be equal with everyone. Now because they are unable, they are weak, they are backward, I have to make special provision for them. Okay yaar, next Sunday you come and sit with me for 1 hour. Now I will only call them who are weak, not those who are already strong. So when I give them special time, what is my endeavor? Equal protection of law. I am giving them equal protection so that they can become equal to everyone. Only then I can treat them equally. So in America they believe in equal protection of law. In Britain they believe in equality before law. In India we believe in both. Right? Now next is, so when I am talking about next topic, now first listen to it, then we will discuss it. What happens is, when the American Constitution was written, this written Constitution was framed, firstly, who wrote the Constitution? If we go back and find the roots of the people who were writing this Constitution, so they were all the rich class people, the landed aristocracy, the rich people, the landlords. The rich class was writing the Constitution. Because the rich class wrote the Constitution, what they ended up doing, they made fundamental right to property one such strong right in America that to take someone's property is a most difficult thing in America. Whereas in India, if the government want, it can take over anybody's property in public interest. In America, it is the most difficult thing. So the rich class protected its property. And this rich class, when it was talking about democracy, initially they said the right to vote should be given only to the rich people, not to everyone. The people who pay taxes, they should get the right to vote. So the rich people wrote the Constitution, protected their property and got the right to vote. So many people say that this American Constitution is nothing but only and only an economic document. It talks about the economic rights only. But then there are other people who say, see, we have democracy, everyone finally got right to vote, there is a federal structure, there is Supreme Court, people have other rights like the state is secular and so much so forth. Then why to call it only an economic document? So this was a historical dispute or a debate about the nature of American Constitution. Is it just an economic document or is it a complete set of rights? Now this is the topic which we are going to discuss in this slide, economic interpretation of American Constitution. It was in 1913, Constitution is written in 1780s, 90s, 1913, there was a very prominent writer in America by the names of Charles A. Beard. He wrote a very important essay and the name of the essay was An Economic Interpretation of the Constitution, right? So he came up with the idea and he emphasized it was created by rich groups to safeguard their economic interest. What happened? Rich merchants and landlords dominated the Congress. What is Congress? Someone who was writing the Constitution, who wrote the Constitution. Then elected through a very narrow franchise. What is franchise? Franchise is right to vote. Who elected the Congress? Only rich people elected it based on property qualifications. Franchise based on property qualification. Rich people elected the Congress. Then Constitution itself provided for voting right on basis of property qualification. When the Constitution was written, only rich people got the right to vote. Emphasis that most of the provisions deal with economic matters, right? Emphasis that most of the provisions deal with economic matters. Now this is not French Revolution, it is right to property. So emphasis that most provisions deal with economic matters, fundamental right to property, policy of laissez-faire. Now what is policy of laissez-faire? Free economy where state will not interfere. Freedom of profession, you can choose any profession whatever you want to do, and capitalist form of political economic system where everything is in the private hands, state is not investing into it. Like in India, now you have government run railways, government run airways, Air India which go into losses, then government run your buses, government runs your electricity. In America everything is private, right? This is leave man alone, exactly. Then this interpretation that American Constitution was an economic document, widely accepted interpretation earlier but gradually eclipsed. Now other people came, they said, why are you calling it just an economic document? There is so much of politics in it. In 1956, Robert Brown, and in 1958, Forrest McDonald, the two main political writers of America at that time, they emphasized that constitution is not just an economic document. It contains provisions related to political, social and cultural life as well. We have a secular democratic polity. There is idea of republicanism, which in itself is provided to people, and American constitution guarantees freedom of expression and thought. So how can you say it is only an economic document? It has so much of political, social and cultural aspects to it as well. So if now they ask you, do you think that American constitution is an economic document? You will say initially it was believed so, more popularly by the writings of Charles A. Beard, that he emphasized on these points. But in the broad light, when we keep an eye on American constitution and its other aspects, it appears that it is not an economic document, rather it is a comprehensive document including political, economic, cultural and social rights. Before I start talking about this Monroe Doctrine, somebody has asked me what is doctrine. Doctrine is like a principle or a policy, right? That is what we mean by Monroe Doctrine. Now what is Monroe Doctrine? First let me explain you something so that you can then properly understand and relate with it what we are doing. This gentleman Monroe is the US president. See what happens. I have to make you understand something. USA became independent between 1776 to 83. This is the time when USA becomes independent. Now when USA becomes independent, it will take some time for USA to grow, to become little powerful. And when USA becomes little powerful, it started now investing into its own industrial development. Now USA also wants to have some exclusive areas where USA can have better trade prospects. So the first choice was Latin America. It is like, see, this is my world and this is North America, South America, then there is an ocean, then you have Europe and other parts of the world, and then on this side again there is an ocean. So this is an isolated area. So USA is saying that this Latin America should be under our influence and Europe must not interfere in Latin America. Let Latin America be controlled by USA so that we can improve our economies at an independent level in this region. So Monroe Doctrine was the US president telling Europe not to interfere in Latin America, right? So this USA once started becoming stable, it will first become a continental power through Monroe Doctrine, asking Europeans to stay away from Latin America. Now that USA has become a continental power, next step will be after World War I, when USA will start interfering in the European affairs. USA will decide that how Europe will conduct itself, and the US President Woodrow Wilson in 1920 will tell that Europe, to remain peaceful, need to make a League of Nations, and a League of Nations will be made and America will not become a member of it. America will say, we propose this for Europe. Now America first became a continental power through Monroe Doctrine. After World War it became a power that had its influence on Europe. After World War II, America became a superpower, USA against USSR, and they fought a Cold War. And when USSR disintegrated, America became a only superpower. America became the only superpower, and we said it is unipolar world. There is only one center of power, that is USA. And then USA said, yes, I am a global policeman. If there is problem in Afghanistan, I will come. If there is problem in Iran, Iraq, or problem in, let's say, Syria, or problem in Africa, or China creating problem, USA will always come to solve the problem. So USA gave itself the self-proclaimed status of global policeman. The journey started from a country which was controlled by Britain, then they became independent. Through Monroe Doctrine they became a continental power, and then after World War I they started interfering in European politics. After World War II they became a superpower, and after end of Cold War they became a global policeman. And then 2001 the US attacks came, WTC, and the might of US was challenged for the first time. Even during World War I and World War II, no country dared attack USA. It was first time in 2011, 9/11, 2001, 9/11 that USA was attacked. Now this is what I am going to cover, not this entire history, because this is not entirely part of today's lecture. We will talk about every step. We will talk about World War and impact on America. We will talk about Cold War and impact on America, and 9/11 also. Not in world history, 9/11 will come in international relations, right? So this is what I am going to cover in Monroe Doctrine. Now let's write it. You will yourself understand what is better. Monroe Doctrine, it is December 1823 when it was announced. December 1823. First point, it is the cornerstone of US foreign policy. Cornerstone of US foreign policy, enunciated by, given by ENUNCIATED. ENUNCIATED, enunciated by the US President James Monroe. US President James Monroe, MONROE, through which he declared that the old world and new world had different systems. Like old world where Europe was powerful, it has different systems. Now USA is becoming powerful, the world will have a new system. Next point, he made 4 basic points. Now we have to write 1, 2, 3, 4. Number one is US would not interfere in the internal affairs or wars between European powers. US would not interfere in the internal affairs or wars between European powers. Number 2, US would not interfere with the existing colonies in Western Hemisphere. That means in Latin America, if Europe has any existing colonial possessions, they can have it. America will not object to it. US will not interfere with existing colonies in Western Hemisphere. Number 3, Western Hemisphere to be closed to future colonization. That means no new colonies to be established in Latin America. Western Hemisphere to be closed to future colonization. And last, number 4, any attempt by a European power to control any nation in Western Hemisphere, any attempt by a European power to control any nation in Western Hemisphere to be seen as a hostile act against US. Next main point, this doctrine was a result of the concerns of USA and Britain that the European nations would try to control the Latin American countries, which became independent from Spanish control. We will write a note on Latin American independence as well. Next, point, the Monroe Doctrine basically is an effort of unilateral means one sided, unilateral, UNILATERAL, unilateral US protection over entire Western Hemisphere. Next, however, it was after 1870 when USA became industrially strong. Now I told USA became industrial power after 1860s. However, it was after 1870 that Monroe Doctrine became genuinely effective, and when in 1904 Theodore Roosevelt, Theodore, T-H-E-O-D-O-R-E, when in 1904 Theodore Roosevelt, T-H-E-O-D-O-R-E, Theodore Roosevelt, R-O-O-S-E-V-E-L-T, Theodore Roosevelt, when in 1904 Theodore Roosevelt, the then US President, announced that if any Latin American country is in any sort of trouble, comma, US alone can intervene. US alone can intervene. Last point. during the time of Theodore Roosevelt, during the time of Theodore Roosevelt, when Germany tried to force the Latin American countries comma, USA asked them to stay away. USA asked them to stay away, and in this way USA became a policeman for Latin America. USA became a policeman for Latin America. Now that I have dictated, now let's have a look at board and see what is there on the board for you. This is Monroe Doctrine, President James Monroe. It was a cornerstone of US foreign policy enunciated by President James Monroe in his annual message to Congress in 1823, declaring that the old world and new world had different systems and must remain distinct spheres. Monroe made 4 basic points. United States would not interfere in internal affairs of or wars between European powers. The United States recognized and would not interfere with existing colonies and dependencies in Western Hemisphere. Western Hemisphere was close to future colonization, and any attempt by a European power to oppress or control any nation in the Western Hemisphere would be viewed as a hostile act against the United States. How it evolved? After 1870, interpretation of Monroe Doctrine became increasingly broad. As the United States emerged as a world power, the Monroe Doctrine came to be defined to define a recognized sphere of influence. President Theodore Roosevelt added the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine in 1904, which stated that in case of flagrant and chronic wrongdoings by a Latin American country, United States could intervene in that country's internal affairs. Roosevelt's assertion of hemispheric police power was designed to preclude the violation of Monroe Doctrine by European countries seeking redress of grievances against unruly or mismanaged Latin American states. So what I am going to do, I will first narrate the story of Civil War, then I will dictate the entire Civil War. Those who want to write, they must write. Those who don't want to write, keep listening while I dictate, and then you have already got the sheet. Now see, this is United States of America, or you can call it United States. There is no difference, right? When I talk about United States of America, you can understand it like this is USA and this is Latin America, or you can call it South America, where we have countries like Venezuela, Brazil and many other, Argentina and many other. The soccer players love these countries, right? Now this is North America and this is South America, fine. But then this is one United States of America, which is basically North America, but in North America there is USA as well as Canada, right? So this is USA and Canada together making North America. This is Latin America or South America. Now when I talk about USA, as I say, this is India, this is North India, this is South India. I hope you understand now. This South India doesn't mean Sri Lanka, it is part of India. Similarly, we can divide United States of America into north of USA and south of USA. When I talk about Civil War, what is Civil War? It was a conflict between the states of north of USA and south of USA. Now what was this Civil War? Why the states of North USA and South USA? That means the states of one country, they started to fight. Now what happened is, if I talk economically, so the north of USA started becoming industrialized, right? Whereas south of USA was more about plantation economy, farming and other things. For industries, we need industrial workers, but most of the workers were in the south and they were like the slaves. not allowed to shift to north. As long as this slavery is not coming to an end, the people living in south cannot migrate to north and the industries cannot get the workers. So the growth of USA is stagnant. On the other hand, USA as a nation has been created on the principle of equality. When you believe in the principle of equality, how can some of the people remain slave and some of the people are free men? Like these free men had all the rights, the slaves have no rights. So in 1860s, when the elections of US president were due, the president candidate of the Republican Party, there are two major political parties in USA. One is Republican Party and the other is Democrats Party, the Democrats, right? So the presidential candidate of the Republican Party was Abraham Lincoln. This man, when he was to contest elections as president of USA, he made an announcement that if I become the president of USA, I will not continue to be a president where half country is free and half is slave. That means if I become president, I will ban the slavery. Slavery as an institution will be banned. Everyone will get the same rights and then they can move to north and whatever they want to do. Now when Abraham Lincoln said that if I become the president, I will ban slavery, all the states in south, they felt threatened because their economy is based on plantation, and if slavery is banned, they may go into recession. So the states of south decided that we will not vote for Abraham Lincoln. Now when they decided we will not vote for Abraham Lincoln, obviously Democrats will become more popular in south. They were earlier also popular because they always supported slavery. But unfortunately, the members of Democratic Party, the Democrats, they themselves started fighting on other reasons and many candidates started contesting independent elections. So the votes were divided in south, whereas entire north voted for Abraham Lincoln unanimously. So despite the fact that Abraham Lincoln got no votes from south, he still managed to win the election as president because the votes in south got divided among various Democrats. Because now Abraham Lincoln won the election and he is to become the president, south said we will not remain part of United States of America, we want to leave USA and we will make a new country. So USA virtually started to break down, and the states of south of USA, they announced that we are no more a part of USA, let this north be USA, we create Confederate States of America, CSA, right? They made a new state called CSA. They elected their new president, they made their new army, they made their new flag, and they said we are a separate country. Britain was annoyed with America because America fought war and they became independent. So Britain said yes, CSA is a legit country, I support it. Now it has got international recognition too. So a new country was born. Abraham Lincoln said, see, this is not allowed. Our constitution does not allow the states to leave the union. We have created a union, so you cannot leave it. But the states of south said, where in the constitution it is written that we cannot leave it? So it is silent, the constitution is silent, so we are leaving USA. Now that they did not agree, now what Abraham Lincoln did, he sent his army, and north of USA and south of USA, which has become CSA, they started fighting a war. Now a war within a country is called civil war. So that is why it is called American Civil War of 1861. When this war started, because north is industrialized, it has better machinery, it could make better weapons. So north could easily defeat south, and the unity of USA was restored, CSA abolished, all the south countries again came back into USA. But now the north said slavery is banned, and in south industries will grow, transportation will grow, and entire USA will become a major power. So one positive impact of the civil war is collective growth of north and south. Earlier only north of USA was growing, south was lagging behind. Let's start with introduction. The American Civil War was the most disastrous conflict. The American Civil War of 1861 was the most disastrous conflict in the history of USA. Subpoint, more than 6 lakh people died. Now causes of American Civil War. There are many issues in it, right? We'll start with first. Number one is issue of slavery. Issue of slavery. First point, slavery was the main bone of contention. Slavery was the main bone of contention between North and South of USA. North and South of USA. Subpoint, the states in north of USA believed that slavery is a crime against humanity. Considered slavery as a crime against humanity, but for the states in the south of USA, the number of slaves owned by a family decided its social status. Next subpoint, slavery had immense economic value. Slavery had immense economic value as slaves were required for plantation activity, whereas the states in North US where industrialization was expanding, comma, more workers were required. Next main point, there were different cultural and ideological traditions. In North and South. Subpoint, North was more liberal and progressive. With high level of education. As compared to South. Second subpoint, similarly Similarly, there were different political opinions in regard to slavery in the north and south of USA. In the north and south of USA, put hyphen and write the Republican Party, comma, which was popular in north, was in favor to abolish slavery, while the Democratic Party, comma, which was popular in south of USA, supported slavery, This is it. Now this is the issue of slavery. Second main topic after first issue in the causes for American Civil War. First one was issue of slavery. Second is lack of clarity over nature of American Union. Now see, the states in north which are more educated, they think that even if it is not written in the constitution that nobody can leave the union, it is understood that we have come together to stay together. So it is like something which is unbreakable. It is like unbreakable union. Whereas the south states, they thought when it is not written we can leave the union. Now this becomes an other issue of dispute between north and south, right? So write first point. The American Constitution is silent over the issue of the American Constitution is silent over the issue of the right of the states, to leave the union, and therefore the states of the south of USA, believe that they can leave the union. Second point, however, the states in the north of USA believed that the spirit of unity is the very basic feature of the US Constitution. दो हो गए इश्यूज अब. First issue is that the North states believe that slavery should be banned while the South state says that it must continue. Second, the states of North believe that unity is something that is irrevocable. The states of South believe that they can leave because it is nowhere written. Now the third issue is developments in 1850s. Developments in 1850s. First point, in 1852, H.B. Stove, it's a name of a writer in America, H.B. Stove, H.B. Stove, it's Harriet Beecher Stowe. H.B. Stove wrote a novel, B for Bombay. H.B. Stove wrote a novel का नाम कोट्स में लिखना. In 1852, H.B. Stove wrote a novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom's, T-O-M, post office, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom's Cabin, in which he condemned the institution of slavery, very strongly. Institution of slavery very strongly. Subpoint, this novel became very popular. This novel became very popular in north of USA. In north of USA, but it was banned in the states in south of USA. Next main point, in 1857, the US Supreme Court in the Dred Scott case, Dred, D-R-E-A-D, Dred, D-R-E-A-D, Dred Scott, S-C-O-T-T. The US Supreme Court in the Dred Scott case stated that the slaves have no such rights. Slaves have no such rights which a white man should respect. Now look at the decision of Supreme Court. Slaves have no such rights which a white man should respect. That means the Supreme Court believes that the slaves or the blacks, they are not human beings. They can be treated like animals, and white people need not respect anything which they claim to be their right. This is a decision by the US Supreme Court in 1857. Subpoint, this decision was strongly opposed. This decision was strongly opposed in the states in north of USA, while the states in south of USA, hailed the decision. They said, wow, what a wonderful decision it is. H-A-I-L-E-D, hailed the decision. Now we have written three things. First one is issue of slavery. Second is lack of clarity over nature of American Union. Third is developments in 1850s. Now the things are very clear that the states in north of USA are totally against slavery, whereas the south is totally in favor of continuing with slavery. Now comes the fourth development. Fourth development is role of presidential elections. Role of presidential election of 1860. Next, role of presidential election of 1860. First point, Abraham Lincoln Abraham Lincoln, the candidate of the Republican Party, was a strong supporter of ban on slavery, and he made a statement that America cannot continue as half free and half slave forever. Half free and half slave forever. Next main point. As he won the election, without getting a single vote from South, comma, the states in the south of USA became terrified, and 11 such states joined hands and announced that they are leaving the Union, with which started the American Civil War of 1861. Next लिखो, next heading, how far Abraham Lincoln 1861 to 65 it continued. 1861 to 65 it continued. How far Abraham Lincoln was responsible for the Civil War? How far Abraham Lincoln was responsible for the Civil War? First point, although he was a strong supporter of ban on slavery, and during his election campaign he stated that America cannot continue to be half free and half slave permanently, but once he was elected the president, he made every possible effort to conciliate the South states. Conciliate, CILIATE, conciliate the states of South, and went to the extent to declare put in quotes now, if I could save the Union, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, comma, I would do it. यही था सर, I would do it. That means Abraham Lincoln was ready to not force the ban on slavery without the consent of the states of South. Now they just made it a pretext to leave the Union. So slavery as a reason was just an excuse. It was not a very genuine and authentic reason why the states of South should leave USA. They just made it an issue. If I could save the Union, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, without freeing, free करना FREEING, any slave, comma, I would do it. Last main point, but when all the efforts failed, comma, he had to start a military action. He had to start a military action. Next question that can be asked is nature of American Civil War. Nature of American Civil War. Now when they ask you nature of American Civil War, what exactly are they asking you? They are asking you a question like, do you think that it is a contest between two countries, or is it just a civil war? Like, do you think that CSA, that Confederate State of America, is genuinely a new country, and then two countries fought a war and perhaps USA ended up defeating CSA and brought them back? Or do you think that it was a misunderstanding for the southern states that they can leave the Union though they were one state and they remained one state? This exactly is a question when they ask you nature of the American Civil War. Now write an answer. The American Civil War which started in April 1861, was fought between was fought between 25 states in north and 11 states in the south of USA. Subpoint: the states in the south formed a new entity, that is Confederate States of America. Confederate States of America with Jefferson Davis, JEFFERSON, Jefferson Davis, DAVIS, as president. Next, a section of historians believe that it was a contest between two separate nations because CSA had every mark MARK of a sovereign nation, like its own president, flag, currency and army, full stop. Moreover, it got international recognition it also had or enjoyed international recognition, ब्रैकेट्स में डाल दो, ब्रिटेन recognized it. Next, main point. Moreover, the American Constitution was silent. Over the issue of the right of the states to leave the union. पैराग्राफ चेंज करो, इसका एनालिसिस करते हैं. लेट्स एनालाइज दिस स्टेटमेंट. However, a closer examination of the character of CSA, that means Confederate States of America, and the provisions of American Constitution reveals that CSA cannot be considered a separate nation. Now let's take one example. Let's take example of Punjab. If Punjab at one point of time said that we want to make Khalistan, and Punjab made a separate flag for it, now shall we say that Punjab is a separate state? It is not part of India. Can we say this? Similarly, some states in northeast, or let's say Kashmir, if tomorrow they say we have our own flag, we make our own president, we will make our own currency and we leave India, can we give them the right to leave India? So we cannot give this right. So how can the Americans give this right? And let's take another example. Because India and Pakistan are having hostile relations, and tomorrow if Punjab or Kashmir says we are independent and Pakistan say yes you are independent, so is it any difference? Like, is it making any sense? Similarly, if Britain and America had hostile relations, And if now CSA is made and Britain says yes, it is legitimate, then what sense it make? Because Britain is hostile to America. Obviously, yes, Britain will enjoy troubling America. So why should we say that recognition by Britain is a reason that CSA is a legitimate country, right? So make a sub point. Britain being an enemy of US. Britain being an enemy of US was expected to recognize CSA, but this does not make CSA a legitimate entity. Last point. Moreover, the spirit of unity seems to be inherent in American Constitution. Spirit of unity seems to be inherent in the Constitution, and therefore it cannot be believed to be a conflict between two nations. Last paragraph is, some writers emphasize that as it is the responsibility of the center, union लिख दो, responsibility of the union to safeguard the rights of the states and the citizens, comma, and right to property being one of the fundamental rights, comma, slavery being part of right to property, comma, it was not valid to ban slavery. Right? Then make a sub point and this will be end of this answer. However, when Abraham Lincoln categorically stated that he will not ban slavery, unilaterally, means at his own discretion, comma, the entire dispute ends. Now to make you understand in a simple manner, look at this, what has happened. This is United States of America. in this United States of America, this is north side, this is south side. What happened in the south? There was plantation industry. People used to have big farms, right? Agriculture was the main occupation. On big farms, there were white people who were super rich, right? They were big landlords, super rich. One super rich white man had a, let's say, 100 acres of farm. To work on these 100 acres of farm, he had hundreds of slaves. Most of the slaves were black. Not all, but most of the slaves were black. And these slaves were not considered to be human beings, they were considered to be animals and considered as the property of the landlord. So, in south, for the agriculture to grow, to remain profitable, we need slaves, because yet there is not much of the machinery that can help do cultivation. So, it is manual, people will work. Whereas in north, industries were started to be established. Now, for industries to grow beyond a certain level, as it is just the beginning of industrialization in America, they are very basic industries and they still need the men to work on them. But the slaves are like the people who are kept in chains, they cannot move out of their farms. So, these slaves cannot come to north. So, most of the workers are confined in south. So, the people in north wanted the slaves to be freed so that they can come and work in their factories. Fine. Moreover, in north where there is industrialization, the level of education was higher as compared to south, because they were educated people, they were more liberal, they thought that slaves should be treated as human beings and they should get all their due rights. While in south, even education was not very strong. You can understand it like it is village economy, it is urban economy, right? So, here people were not very educated and they did not believe that slaves have the same rights. So, it is an ideological conflict between north and south. In north, Republican Party is popular, in south, Democrats are popular. In 1860, when Abraham Lincoln becomes the presidential candidate, now it is the time, see 1860s, it is the time when industrial revolution is picking pace in North America. Because industrial revolution is picking pace, so the voters of north will appreciate the idea that slavery must be banned. That is why Abraham Lincoln, when he is to contest the elections, he promised that if I will become a president, I will ban slavery. He is trying to please the voters of north. But at the same time, the voters of south will go against Abraham Lincoln. But the Democrat Party, it went into a split. Some of its members started contesting independent elections. So, in south, the votes were divided among many candidates. No one got major votes, while in north, Abraham Lincoln got all the votes. Now, he becomes president without getting a vote from south. But who is he? He is not the president of north of USA. He is the president of the United States of America. Now, the people of south, they fear that this man said, I will free the slaves. Now, how will we do our cultivation? So, they said, we will leave America. Abraham Lincoln said, there is no need to leave America. I am not going to immediately free all the slaves. Please take time. Let us understand the things, and if need be, then after you agree, I can free the slaves. I will save the Union first. I don't want USA to break. But now they said, no, we do not want to live in USA. So, they created CSA and Britain supported them, and thus started the American Civil War. Last topic, I am not dictating, it is to be explained on the board. So, just have a look at it. It is significance or of impact of American Civil War. We are not writing it. So, what is the significance of the American Civil War? Though it is most disastrous conflict ever fought in history of USA, there was huge losses, but there are benefits too. What are those benefits? USA emerged as a modern nation in true sense. When USA became independent, it said that USA is a modern nation. But where was that idea of being modern when you still believed in slavery? right? Now that the slavery has been banned, yes, you have become a modern nation in a true sense. This is first significance. Number two, USA was deeply divided over the issue of slavery. There were social, economic and cultural life in northern and southern states was different. USA was deeply divided over issue of slavery. Why? Because the social, economic and cultural life in north and south states was different. When there was so much of difference in social, economic and cultural life, how can we say that USA was a nation? USA hardly a nation at the time of commencement of civil war. But when the civil war ended, slavery was banned. Now there is common social, economic and cultural life throughout USA. Yes, now USA became a proper nation, right? Now it has a common culture in north and south. Next, during war, slavery was abolished through Emancipation Proclamation. An act was passed by president, right? Emancipation means freedom, proclamation means order. So during war, slavery was abolished through Emancipation Proclamation issued by Abraham Lincoln. It was on 22nd September 1862, which came into force on 1st January 1863. Remember this date. 1st January 1863, slavery was banned. To ensure that the next government does not reverse the executive decision, so that the next government must not again allow slavery, now what happened? Emancipation was granted constitutional validity through 13th Amendment Act in 1865. 13th Amendment of US Constitution is ban on slavery, and it made ban on slavery permanent. It cannot again be introduced. So 13th Amendment of 1865 is the most important amendment which banned slavery. When the slavery was abolished, it greatly enhanced the prestige of USA as principles of American Revolution found application in real manner. All men are born equal. Now it has been agreed. Now the slaves are treated as men and believed to be born as equals. Before this, it was only theoretical. Now it is practical. So the prestige of USA increased. Look at Americans. They first became democratic. Now they have given freedom even to their slaves. Now other countries will take inspiration from this as well. The 14th Constitutional Amendment Act 1868, it gave legal protection extended to American citizens irrespective of racial differences. Either you are black or white, you will get the same rights. This is 14th Amendment. And then 15th Constitutional Amendment Act 1870 removed restrictions on voting rights, and blacks also given the voting right. Before 1870, blacks were having no right to vote, whereas America became independent in 1776 to 1783's time. 1787 they wrote their constitution. It is almost 100 years, but blacks have not got their right to vote. But today they got the right to vote. Then American Civil War helped USA in emerging as a major military power, because during this war many new weapons were invented and American army became very strong. Large regular army was raised, new weapons invented, and USA emerged as a military power. So during 1860s 70s, USA army emerged very powerful. That is why when it was World War I and USA came to fight to help Britain, Britain won the war against Germany with the US help. US army developed as a powerful army during Civil War. And thus this is one thing which I am not going to tell because I have explained it. American Civil War and the rise of industrialized nation. After this, America became an industrialized nation. This I will explain in one way. See, this is your United States of America, North and South of America. When the North and South had now the common culture, new roads and new railway lines were constructed to connect North and South properly. During the Civil War, the war was fought in South. Because South was trying to go away, the army of North will come to South to fight. So there will be much destruction in South. Because there was much destruction, now rehabilitation has to be ensured, and lot of investment from North will come to South. and now South will also develop. So industrial revolution will spread all over USA. So we can say that the American Civil War politically made USA one, right? Culturally made it one, economically made it one, and helped the industrial revolution grow further.